Hey guys, it's Liv here, and in today's video, I'm going to be ranking every bug-type Pokemon in competitive. If you want to see more content like this, leave a like on the video and subscribe for more. Comment down below what you want to see next, whether it's a type of Pokemon you want to see covered, an aspect or competitive you want to see covered, even if it's not a tier list, just any sort of competitive videos you want to see, comment down below because it's the easiest way for me to know what you guys want to particularly see. And with that said, before we get into it as well, if you want to click on the links down below to things such as my Twitter, Discord, or if you want to become a channel member, those are all great ways to go the extra mile if you want to get extra support or get more updates on videos, especially the Twitter and Discord if you want to get updates on videos. I make sure to post every time a video goes live there. So click on those down below, and with that said, let's get into our tierings. So for anyone who might be watching this for the first time and hasn't seen one of my tier list videos before, let me really quickly go over how I do my tiering. So with the S plus range, this is basically going to be the top range of Pokemon in any sort of competitive facet. If this is one of the top Pokemon in VGC, it'll probably go here. This is one of the top Pokemon in Not-Dex AG, this will probably go here. If it's one of the top Pokemon in Sword and Shield Ubers, it'll probably go here. I'm talking like top 5, maybe a little under top 5, but these are Pokemon that basically in some way, shape, or form heavily influence their metagame. The S range Pokemon are for Pokemon that are pretty decent, but they're not necessarily influencing these like Ubers allow metagames. They're still just really good presences though. These are also for Pokemon like the Landorus Therians of the world that are so influential on the, in general, Sword and Shield metagames for OU or the Not-Dex OU metagames. These are Pokemon that literally decide what is good or bad in those formats. For the A tiers are Pokemon that are still pretty good in OU. They're barely hanging on to Ubers by some slim metric, but they're still not bad. Or for Pokemon that are like insanely top tier in UU. Also, if they're pretty decent in doubles, but they're not necessarily like a top tier Pokemon, maybe like a 4 or 5% usage Pokemon that just happens to be good, but it's not really going to be run on every team, you'll probably see it in the A tier. B tiers are Pokemon that are really niche in VGC. You'll see them in like an archetype or two. They're for Pokemon that are in UU range, for Pokemon that are like kind of good in OU, but not really. Basically those sort of Pokemon. C is for Pokemon that are, this is really taking out any sort of VGC usage, but I might mention it in what a Pokemon can do just to illustrate other aspects of it. But most VGC usage will not account for C through F tier. This is for Pokemon, however, though, that are in like the low UU, high RU range. D tier is for Pokemon that are in the RU like a low RU to high PU range, or even just sometimes really good untiered Pokemon. And then F tiers are Pokemon that are fully evolved and really bad, or for unevolved Pokemon that are not at least below where any sort of the fully evolved would range. There's gonna be a lot of fully evolved bugs that are in the F tier that do end up falling short of some of our NFE bugs, just because the NFE bugs I think are more reliable at the same sort of roles. So with that said, let's get started first off with Butterfree, the first of many F tier Pokemon we're gonna see today. Butterfree does have a lot of things not going for it. However, one thing I will give Butterfree is that Butterfree is an incredible Gmax. As far as F tier bugs go, I will say this is probably going to be one of the better ones. Compound Eyes is a pretty good ability, and this has Quiver with a decent dual stab of bug flying, at least offensively speaking. Defensively speaking, this is a horseshit typing, and a lot of bugs sadly do have this typing with terrible bulk. But Butterfree, if nothing else, stuff like Compound Eyes does benefit, especially with the fact this is a Hurricane Mon, as well as having a lot of cool status options like Stun Spore. So this is honestly a pretty decent F tier, but it's still an F tier. Butterfree Gmax though, this might be a hot take, but I actually think this is a B tier Gmax. The Gmax move being Max Befuddle is the best of these any sort of roulette status options, considering it is the chance for Sleep, Para, or Poison. The only one I would say is better would be Gmax Snooze, just because it's a guaranteed, well, it's only going to be trying to roll for Sleep, which Sleep is probably the best one you could be rolling for of any of those, especially in a Gmax metagame, because they're typically stuff like VGC, where you're not really going to be caring if a Pokemon's poisoned and taking 12% every turn. It's convenient, it's better than nothing, but you would typically appreciate Sleep there more because of how short the games are. So I actually think that Butterfree is one of the better Gmax mons in my personal opinion, and that'll obviously show a little bit more indicatively when we get into other Gmax Pokemon on this tier list, or even just a general Gmax Pokemon tier list. But one of the other things as well is that unlike a lot of the other status-based Pokemon that are inflicting status conditions with their signature max moves, Butterfree still gets the better Gmax option out of this. For example, if we were to, let's say, go into Toxicity Gmax, and we were to look at Toxicity's Gmax move, if we were to look at all of these, I believe Toxicity, well, Toxicity is either way losing out, because Toxicity, yeah, it's electric, which means it's losing out on terrain boost, and then it still has the really weak poison option, or something like a Machamp that has its max crit move off of fighting, and not only does it not get the attack boost anymore, but it also has a weaker offensive move. This happens on a few other Pokemon as well, but obviously, in those cases, it's a little bit disappointing. However, with Butterfree, though, you still actually get Airstream, which is like the best max move you can run. So I actually do think Butterfree is an incredible Gmax Pokemon. Easy B tier. Beedrill's horrible. I don't even know what I could give Beedrill credit for. I guess maybe the fact that it has Toxic Spikes. That's something, I guess. But Beedrill's offenses are pretty terrible. 90 offense isn't great, especially when it has such terrible bulk, being 40 Phys Def and 80 Spadef. You get Swords Dance, which is kind of cool, but Beedrill's speed is still really lackluster, and you would basically need to get a Dual Dance off for this to do anything in a game. The abilities are really not great, though Sniper is better than a lot of these bugs will have, I will say. It's still easy F tier. Mega Beedrill, though, this is a high B tier, actually. It's similar to how Butterfree is a really good Gmax mon. Beedrill's a really incredible Mega. So the adaptability boost on top of 145 speed is able to outpace a lot of different Scarfers. To put it in perspective, you need an 81 base speed or higher at +1 speed to outpace Mega Beedrill at level 100. At level 50, it's a little different. I don't actually remember the speed tier, but I know that 80 does actually get the edge at that point. Regardless, though, 145 is still incredible for outpacing a lot of the slower end Scarfers, or even just a lot of Pokemon that aren't Scarfed. This is a really high speed tier that even the likes of Sword and Shield OU doesn't really have a viable Pokemon that hits this. Pokemon like Dragapult and Zeraora both would get outpaced by this if Mega Beedrill was in their metagame. So that's already a really great thing in its favor. Not only this, but adaptability is a great way to boost Beedrill's solid coverage set. Bug Poison offensively is really great because Bug is great for stuff like Psychic types, so it typically threaten poisons, and Poison is great for Fairy types, which resist Bug. So that's also really useful, and this is a really good pivot. It has some good options like Knockoff in its arsenal. Fell Stinger is also a pretty cool way for this thing to pick off a lot of different weaker Pokemon, and then boost its attack by 3 stages. And unlike something like a regular Beedrill, Mega Beedrill actually does have the speed to pull this off a lot more successfully, so Mega Beedrill is an easy B tier in my opinion. Venomoth's honestly a solid C tier Pokemon. I think that similarly to Beedrill, Venomoth has a pretty cool typing of Bug Poison, which, as I said earlier, is pretty decent for certain offensive variations. Venomoth is also a pretty good Quiver Dance option, with stuff like Tinted Lens being a benefit for it. This is actually not even in the RU range for just general Natdex tiering. I believe it's an RU BL mon, because even among the full metagame, this is still good enough to not be in the lowest tier, which for anyone who doesn't know, for Natdex tiering only goes down to RU. So this isn't even in the bottom tier, which a lot of other bugs that I would actually personally value as better are still in that RU range, which in my opinion says a lot about just how well Venomoth held up to power creep, considering Tinted Lens with the typing is honestly really good. Bug typing with Tinted Lens actually goes a long way, considering there are so many different resistances to it. But if we look at other Pokemon that do fall in the RU range, stuff like Araquanid falls in this range, stuff like, actually a lot less that I thought was better than it, but Araquanid and Pincer are 2 decent RU Pokemon, again Mega as well, all of which are in the lowest tiering, and Venomoth was good enough to get banned from it. Not only this, but Venomoth's also a pretty decent Toxic Spike mon. It's a cool pivot, it's got some cool status options to allow it to set up, and typically you can get away with 1 or 2 offensive moves on a Quiver Dance set with like Roost and then Substitute. So I think Venomoth can get away with a lot of shenaniganry. Easy C tier bug. Parasect, if you guys remember the Grass tier list, I think this one is horrible. It's one of the worst bugs, even still, and Bug has a lot worse Pokemon than Grass does. Easy F tier. I'm not even going to go into it. This one pissed me off too much. Wide Guard's kind of cool. Dry Skin's kind of cool. That's about it. Scyther. Scyther is a solid C tier bug as well, actually. Scyther is able to take advantage of heavy duty boots really well, in my personal opinion. And while Natdex rates this as a little cut Pokemon, I couldn't tell you why, actually. Technician with dual wing beats, honestly really amazing. Technician with stuff like, for example, Aerial Ace is also really amazing. It's a cool pivot. 105 speed is amazing. Boots really do benefit this Pokemon a lot, to the degree I don't even think this actually benefits from a Violet anymore. Typically in previous generations, this would have been a Violet option or like a Life Orb or Choice Band mon. You don't really care about that anymore. Boots is the way on this. Bug Flying being 4 times weak to Rock, and this being a incredible pivot that can just get around it, and it's faster than a lot of other bugs too, actually, which is also really good for it. It's got some cool stuff like Knockoff in its arsenal. It's bulky enough for an NFE bug. 70, 80, 80 is actually pretty decent bulk for a Pokemon like this, so I gotta give it to Scyther. This is honestly a really good C tier bug, and I think it held up pretty well through the generations. Now, a Pokemon that didn't really hold up is regular Pincer. Now, I won't lie, I actually do think a Pincer's not terrible as far as a bug goes, like, especially for a bug that didn't evolve. Albeit, while it's not as bad as these, it's still definitely a really low tier bug. I would probably put it in the F tier still, but I think I might bump this up to D as the list goes on. Pincer does have a lot going for it though. Stuff like Moxie is pretty cool, and you can actually utilize this into Mega Pincer and just pop a Moxie on a free KO if you happen to outpace really slow Pokemon, and then get your +1 off Mega and then sweep a team. Mega Pincer also does have some pretty good coverage options, which a lot of bug types lack. Stuff like Close Combat and Earthquake are amazing for countering Steels and Rocks and Fires as well. Most coverage options that would typically be threatening to bugs, Pincer can actually handle pretty well. So actually, I am going to put this in D tier. I think Pincer's definitely pretty good for bug typing. Stuff like Earthquake is great for Fires, Steels, and Rocks. You have Stone Edge and Rock Slide that are great for flying types. You cover all your weaknesses as well. And this is a pretty cool Scarf option. It even gets Stealth Rocks, which is honestly pretty unique for bug typing. So I gotta give this an easy D tier in my personal opinion. Mega Pincer, I'm giving this a B tier. This will probably be the highest B tier we have though. Mega Pincer having Aerially and a 105 speed tier, especially with priority and quick attack and feint, which a lot of people do forget about. This does also get feint, which is pretty cool for trying to get around protect options. Albeit it doesn't really matter a ton, but there's certain metas where that might be the favorable option. There have been a few in the past actually. While I will say that losing out on Return was a pretty bad nerf for this Pokemon, stuff like Body Slam and Facade are still pretty decent with the Aerialate boost, and Double Edge as well. This could really just be kind of a glass cannon that's just trying to nab a KO or two. With 155 attack in tandem with the Aerialate ability, this really is still kind of a menace. This has coverage, especially for a lot of different flying or bug switch-ins. For stuff like Heatran, for example, you just Earthquake it, as I previously mentioned. For stuff like Ferrothorn, you can go for close combat. So you can handle whatever viable steel type would be switching in on you in the metagame. So I do think Mega Pincer is definitely a solid B tier bug type. However, it's definitely in the lower end, well, the higher end as far as bugs go, even though it is a B tier bug type in my personal opinion. Getting into our next bug type, this is honestly probably one of the worst that we're going to link in the whole tier list, Ledian. So Ledian, I'll be honest, I don't know why people would ever use this Pokemon, outside of just really liking it. It's a cool design, it's a missed opportunity though. 35 attack with Iron Fist doesn't really matter. This has terrible special attack as well with only 55. Its special bulk is kind of cool, but a lot of its weaknesses are to physical types, so it just... even still, its resistances aren't really special types outside of Grass. This has pretty terrible move pool. Its coverage is kind of cool, but it's all coverage on the physical end, which again, does no damage. It even has priority too on the physical end with Mach Punch, which is not stab, and it's terrible, terrible physical attack. This has kind of okay utility of stuff like Knockoff and Tailwind, but its speed tier at 85 is kind of average for a Pokemon with this little bulk as it has. This Pokemon is actually one of the most missed opportunity bug types of all time, and it's kind of a shame because Ledian has an incredible design, but this is probably going to be one of the worst F tiers we have. I would actually not be shocked at all if this was the worst F tier we have, because even though the next Pokemon we have, Ariados, is pretty terrible, I actually think that Ariados has a lot going for it. Ariados is, while it's a slow web setter, it is still a web setter. It has priority on Sucker Punch, which is kind of cool because it's a poison type, so it can at least handle frail psychics, as well as Shadow Sneak as well in case it was worried about a setup psychic that was faster. You do have options like Toxic Spikes for a second hazard, which is also, again, pretty cool. Infestation Trapping is kind of okay, but again, this Pokemon is too slow to pull it off in my personal opinion. I do think that Ariados has stuff going for it, which is more than I can say about a lot of these F-tier bugs. I would actually personally put this right below Butterfree. I think a Butterfree's utility is a lot better, and the speed tier is decent. It could also be a much better Quivermon, especially with Compound Eyes plus Hurricane. So I do think that that's going for it pretty well. As far as Beedrill goes, I think it's at least more valuable than Beedrill just because of the second hazard and priority aspect. So I'll give it that. I think Ariados is pretty cool as far as F-tier bugs go, and there's a lot that I don't think really hold a candle to it. Next up is Fortress. Now, Fortress is definitely a B-tier bug. I forget where I put this on Steel, but I'm going to put this right at the bottom of B. It's a solid Hazard Mon, and while BDSP did cut Stealth Rocks for it, for whatever fucking reason, I don't know why, but it was fucking stupid. Give it back Stealth Rocks. It was in the game. It wasn't a cut move. Give it back Stealth Rocks. I beg you, BDSP. I beg you. Not even Home is letting it keep Stealth Rocks. It's fucking stupid. This Mon, oh, this infuriates me. I fucking hate BDSP so much. I hate that. I've loved that I grew my channel off of it, but fuck, I hate BDSP as a meta. Fortress though. Fortress is pretty cool. It's still, even in BDSP, got dual hazards. It's one of the few removal options in BDSP because so many Pokemon lost removal. It's a cool option, honestly. Steel Bug only has like 1 weakness to fire. It's kind of cool for Sturdy Boom. It's got some nice attacks, I guess, going for it. I don't know. You don't really need to use this as an offensive Pokemon. It's just a good hazard mon. And Sturdy with removal is kind of cool. Sadly, this isn't in a Boots metagame outside of Natdex, which this doesn't really mind being in Natdex, because Sturdy with Boots could be kind of cool for it, in my personal opinion. This is pretty unviable as far as a Natdex setting goes, though. You don't really need this Pokemon, just because, again, a lot of power creep caught up to it. And as far as RU mons go, there's just a lot better hazard mons. Like, even as UU, this would have no presence because Skarmory exists there. And as far as RU mons go, there's hazard mons like a Celgor that exists. Stuff like Aerodactyl exists, I believe. I would be shocked if Aerodactyl doesn't yeah, I guess Aerodactyl exists. I just passed it earlier. So there's definitely a lot of faster, better hazard mons. Like, and also just a lot of other options that can taunt this. So it kind of lost its charm in that dex, and I think Power Creep just caught up to this Pokemon. But in BDSP, I think it has enough of a niche to where I'll put it in B tier. Even still, even if it wasn't a good mon in BDSP, I think at worst I could put it in C tier just because it's a mon that has so many hazard options, which in itself just gives more team variety for what it can run because it's a sturdy hazard mon. So that's good enough. Scissor is an easy A tier, and Mega Scissor literally just goes right above it. These are both some of the best bug types in the game, both steel bug typing, and they both have good priority, good recovery, good bulk in general. Scizor being one of the best bug types as far as BDSP goes, and Mega Scizor being one of the best mons in Natdex, just blanket. These are two Pokemon that really do have such a strong chokehold on the metagame, in my personal opinion, and in their respective formats, that is. Even with Latios being banned from BDSP, Scizor still remains an S- Pokemon in a format where Heatran is one of the best Pokemon, because it's just such a good check to stuff like Weavile and Latios for a long-term setting. And as far as Mega Scizor goes, it's still a really dominant Pokemon as far as Natdex OU goes, albeit it's not like S tier viable, but it's still an A tier viable mon when, again, Heatran is one of the best Pokemon in the format. And even still, there's some other decent counterplay to Scizor, especially with Hidden Powers, Victini, Volcarona. So the metas are not necessarily built to be kind to these Pokemon, but they still find a way to be viable anyway. So I definitely would say that these are both, again, A tier Pokemon very, very easily. Next up, though, we do have Shuckle. Now, again, Shuckle is another mon similar to Fortress, where I think that, in my personal opinion, it got kind of shafted by power creep, and Shuckle hasn't really held up in any sort of format it's in. Shuckle kind of is outclassed by Fortress, in my personal opinion, despite having webs, which is pretty cool for it. It's not a mon that really holds up in Sword and Shield even, because, again, just a lot of stuff generally caught up to Shuckle, and most mons running boots don't really mind the fact that Shuckle has webs and rocks, albeit it is kind of cool to scout for them. But Shuckle is also just way too passive, and I think a lot of hazard mons in general, even for bug types, have gotten a lot more offensive based. Shuckle, while it does have incredible bulk, it has terrible HP, so it can't even really take advantage of that to a high degree. It has no reliable recovery, and while you could in theory go with a contrary set with Shell Smash and then go for Rest and try and sell out a team that way, it's kind of a gimmick set at best, and I think a lot of people have kind of caught on to Shuckle doing that, and no one really is actually getting baited by that anymore. So Shuckle is definitely a D tier Pokemon, albeit I think it is way too good for F, even with the meta catching up to it. It offers way too much to a team just with webs and rocks alone, to where I don't think that I could ever put this in F tier, even if the meta is very unkind to it. Heracross, easy B tier bug type. Bug fighting is honestly an incredible typing, especially with Guts. This is an incredible breaker. It's also an incredible Moxie sweeper with a Choice Scarf. Heracross is honestly kind of a demon as far as an offensive Pokemon goes, especially for bug. It's a bug type that can handle with a stab other steel types and rock types. It's neutral to rock, which is great for it. It's decent speed tier too for a Scarfer. 85 is no joke. As I said, that's enough to outpace stuff like Mega B, Dragapult in OU, Zeraora in OU. And while this isn't some like OU viable mon, it's definitely an UU viable mon at the very least, with two incredible offensive abilities. It's an incredible breaker. It even got spikes this gen, which is honestly kind of cool because Heracross does force enough switches to where spikes are not a terrible idea to run on this Pokemon. And especially with a lot of Boots Pokemon typically being Rocks weak, to where they're going to be flying types, or maybe they're fire types. The steel types don't always really run Boots, which is kind of beneficial. Same as grounds, which especially when you're trying to spam your bug stab, that's kind of valuable. Especially when also, again, Heracross is just meant to get chip over time in a lot of Pokemon. So when you're trying to chip away Pokemon that aren't really running boots, most of the spike affected mons don't really run boots, in my personal opinion, at least from what I've seen in the metagame. Now, a lot of neutral mons like Coco, Dragapult, Zera, the really fast stuff that would hate webs, they do, but a lot of the really bulky mons, like for example, you're not going to see something in RU, like if we do look at the RU rating, actually, let's look through, you're not going to see something, for example, like a Metagross running boots. Whereas Metagross being a steel type that is neutral to fighting, taking a single spike would be pretty bad for it against a Guts Heracross. Seeing something, for example, like a P2 taking spikes that's in a Violet Pokemon and can't really afford to run boots would be pretty good. Albeit, it's still going to get massacred by close combat anyway, but still not bad. Stuff like Suicune taking spikes is pretty good for it, especially when otherwise it's just defensive water that could try and pressure stall Haircross and wait until it gets into range of Scald because of burn damage. So that's also, again, pretty valuable. So I think that Haircross does have a nice presence there, and I think that spikes do help its potency a bit. Albeit, they don't fix any issues that are glaring with it, they just help. So easy B tier. Mega Heracross, I literally am just going to put this right above Heracross. It's a pretty cool option, albeit I kind of wish it's kept the speed tier, though it's still an incredible breaker as far as Natex goes. It was good enough, at the very least, to get Heracross banned as far as a UU setting goes. So if nothing else, I do have to give Heracross credit in that regard. It does kind of stand out as far as any sort of potent UU Pokemon go, because it was, again, good enough to be banned from the UU tier. It just kind of sucks in OU, though there are certain teams that do actually use this Pokemon. It's not unviable, it's just not great, and there's a lot of other megas that do give it competition, but it is kind of cool. I'll give it above Beedrill, because if nothing else, again, I do think that this is a really good natural breaker. I think that Pincer is still a little more valuable personally, even if they're both like in the same tiering, just because of the speed and priority that Pincer has, despite having a little less offense to it. Also, the fact that Haircross doesn't need to rely on basically multi-hit moves, which Skill Link is pretty cool, but if you're running a lot of those moves, you can't take advantage of Moxie as easily, in my personal opinion. Whereas Pincer doesn't really mind. It can just go for like a body slam or like an X's or a close combat and just kind of pick off something with a strong attack and not have to worry about the gamble for hits to still pop a Moxie. So they're still really good. I just think that Pincer's slightly better. Beautifly. Oh my god, we're in the terrible bugs now. Beautifly is awful. This is just Butterfree but bad because it has the same primary ability and it has fucking rivalry. It has a worse speed tier, worse bulk. It's just worse Butterfree. It has basically the same coverage too. It has Quiver Dance still, it still has Roost, it still has Tailwind, it still has Stun Spore. It's just worse Butterfree. It's just worse Butterfree. I hate it. It's not Parasect bad though. F tier. Dustox is kind of cool though. I actually do think Dustox is kind of an okay support mon, albeit I won't act like it's great. This thing kind of would have loved Toxic Spikes actually, which is the one reason I'm actually going to tear it right below Beedrill. But this is a cool Poison Bug Quiver Dance mon. It just has no coverage for steals. It has no Toxic Spikes. Moonlight and its bulk and screen support options are kind of good though. Like, this isn't some unviable mon, but, well, no, it is some unviable mon. But it's not some unviable mon compared to the other F tier bugs, but it's at least better than Beautifly. The typing's kind of cool with a not ability to get Toxic. You could run this like a Fizdef Quivermon, and Compound Eyes is still kind of cool on this, albeit it's not as useful because there's not really a ton that you would take advantage of offensively. But if you're trying to go for something like a status that's not toxic, well, actually, I don't think it gets a status that's not toxic. Yeah, okay, so Compound Eyes is actually kind of useless on this. There's not really any low accuracy moves you'd really want to click, and the only one would really be Toxic because it's 90% accurate, but you're a poison type, so it's going to hit 100%. Really, the best move I could think of that you'd actually click that's not 100% would be Electro Web, which isn't great. You wouldn't really click that on this Pokemon. So I take that back, actually. The Compound Eyes doesn't matter, but even still, Shield Dust is a kind of cool ability, actually, so we'll still give it F tier. Masquerain, honestly, solid D tier bug. I don't know if Masquerain really is like thought of as a bad bug type or not, but I think this actually is a pretty good one, personally. Masquerain does have a lot going for it, in my personal opinion. Intimidate and Unnerve are two really good abilities, especially with a Nerve plus a Flying typing. That's honestly really nice because Flying is typically a really potent offensive typing. It's a good Quiver Dance mon with base 80 speed, and its bulk is okay for a Quiver Dance mon. It's at least better than Beautifly's. On top of that as well, 100 special attack, and this has good coverage for stuff like rock types and other threatening types to bugs such as fire. So I gotta give it that. Scald is honestly amazing on this, especially to try and burn the physical attackers and try and weaken their potency against you. Really cool Pokemon, and not only that, but it still also is useful in a not offensive role with stuff like Quiver Dance, with sticky webs or being a nice pivot. it just has a lot going for it in my opinion, and I think it's definitely going to be one of, if not the best D tier bugs we have today. Really cool Pokemon actually. I'm really looking forward to a generation where Masquerade's usable again, because I would actually love to, besides BDSP, because as I said earlier, I don't, BDSP is a flawed meta, but I would love to see this thing in like the Scarlet and Violet games, for example, if it was in them. Because I think that Masquerade would still actually kind of hold up, especially with heavy duty boots. So this is honestly a really cool D tier Pokemon. Ninjask is fucking awful, but it can be the best. No, actually, this is a D tier Pokemon. What am I saying? Ninjask is kind of the reason I actually think that the reason that I think that Masquerade will be viable come Scarlet and Violet if it does end up in those games. Ninjask benefits a lot from heavy duty boots plus speed boost, and it can set up pretty easily with Sword Stance when it doesn't have to worry about taking 50% from Stealth Rocks. You could put this in on any sort of grass type, and you could honestly kind of go ham as long as you kill the resists first. Sadly, this has no coverage, which is where I think that Masquerade does benefit a bit more. The one edge I will give it over Pincer, though, is the fact that this has a lot faster speed. You really don't need to invest in speed at all. It still has knockoff, which is kind of good utility, and it could be a lot better but cleaner, in my opinion. Actually, this doesn't get knockoff. It still gets Night Slash, which is something, I guess, coverage-wise. But realistically, though, Aerial Ace plus Leech Life plus Sword Stance and Protect, you could definitely make some shenaniganry work. And also on top of that as well, this is kind of okay in terms of a Nat Deck setting for baton passing. So again, another niche that it has over Pincer, but it's such an outclassed Pokemon at this point as far as baton passers go. It's because of stuff like Smeargle being really viable, or even like the Mimes are pretty viable, Evolutions. So I can't really give it like a high tier off of baton passing and anything goes. It's something a lot of Pokemon do, and a lot of Pokemon do it better, but it's not a bad one actually. It's kind of okay. Still definitely D tier. Shedinja, really cool bug this generation actually. Shedinja has actually carved a really good niche in VGC as being a mon that is able to wall out common Ogres, Zacians, and a lot of other top tier box arts, because a lot of them can't touch Shedinja, which is really cool for it as far as a VGC setting goes. It's a really good VGC Pokemon. As far as singles goes, this is like okay on certain stalls, like low viability, I guess, like very low viability on stalls, just depending on if you can kill the threats to Shedinja. It still has to worry about weather, status, rocks. So singles, I don't think it's great, but in VGC it has a presence because you don't have to worry about hazards in VGC. So it's really just weather, which sadly the sand and hail are a lot more noteworthy now because of Rockfall and Hailstorm max moves, which is pretty bad for Shedinja actually. And as far as status goes, there's also the random status Gmax moves, or even just status in general is still not terrible in VGC. Secondary chance moves for VGC as well. So I'm gonna give this a C tier. I'm gonna put it at the top of C. I think its singles viability kind of kills it, and it's not like a top tier Pokemon in VGC. This is just a Pokemon that kind of has surged through Series 12, but it's really, really niche in my opinion. It's not a Pokemon that really works well in a lot of teams, and you do kind of need to play your cards right to make this work, but it does, in theory, have actual presence in VGC. I think there could be a case for B tier Shedinja, personally. Shedinja does definitely, like, if Shedinja ever had a generation that was like its generation, it would probably be this one, especially with stuff like Ally Switch being so potent. This is a pretty decent support Pokemon. Also, I think it gets Skill Swap, I want to say. It does not get Skill Swap. That's kind of unfortunate because that could have been really cool, but I know that there are Pokemon that do try and Wonder Guard Skill Swap in tandem with this and still make it even more deadly. The point being is that Shedinja's a good Pokemon, but it's a good Pokemon with a ton of support, like a ton of support. So I can't really tier it that high, but it's definitely gonna end up being like the best C tier Pokemon I can think of right now. Volbeat and Illumise, I'm gonna put these both honestly in the same tier. However, I do need to remember which one gets Tail Glow, which it seems to be Illumise. I do need to double check that though. Let's see, so Tail, neither do. Oh right, because it's a cut move. Which one did get Tail Glow? That one is important. It seems to be Volbeat, but I do need to, again, I need to double check it because I don't want the video to be wrong. Yep, it's Volbeat. Okay, so Volbeat literally will just go right above, and then Illumise right here. They both have some good support options. Stuff like Thunder Wave is pretty cool. They're both Prankster Baton Pass mons, which is also actually what I will say. While it's banned in a lot of Smogon tiers, that's a kind of cool thing actually to stat pass with Prankster Boost. It's pretty easy to ignore your speed at that point, and you can pass a Tail Glow boost, which is really incredible. They still get other setup options as well, albeit not a ton of options, but I'm pretty sure that Illumise gets something else that it stat passes. I'm just kind of forgetting it offhand. I guess it doesn't actually, but even still, it's a cool prankster momentum option that should outpace any sort of faster options. So even outside of stat passing, it still is pretty cool. They both, Illumise can get Wish, which is nice. They both have just generally really good support moves. They're better for the F tier bugs, but they're still F tier bugs for sure. They are very hard to pull off. Armaldo is kind of cool. It's better than like Ariados. I think the rapid spin and the weather potential for this Pokemon are pretty good. What I will say though, every single time that I think of this Pokemon now, it gets ingrained in my head the fucking Blunder tweet that was about, or something that I replied to a Blunder tweet. Some sort of conversation I had on Twitter with Blunder. The point being about Armaldo being like the team's rapid spinner and them suddenly being completely unfazed by hazards. I have to find the tweet. I'll try and, if I remember, link it in the description. It was kind of funny. But regardless though, this is a pretty good mon for F tier bugs. It's still terrible. Bug Rock is kind of a cool typing, but this is way too slow to make it work. F tier. Kricketune, only good because it's kind of a faster web setter than Ariados. It has some cool options going for it as far as a low tier bug goes. Stuff, for example, like sticky webs. It gets stuff like, I think it gets knockoff, not in BDSP. In BDSP, actually, this would probably be worse. But as far as a Sword and Shield setting goes, or just a general like Natick setting goes, this gets stuff like knockoff, infestation, taunt. Gets some cool utility, and it's faster than Ariados, so I'll give it that. So F tier, but higher than Ariados. Actually, I'm going to put Ariados higher because it has better priority and also poison immunity and Tsetse spikes. So still better than Beedrill at least. Wormadam ground, I'm going to give above Beautifly because bug ground is an almost good typing. Wormadam is still a terrible Pokemon though. Wormadam grass gets the lowest rating on the list, and Wormadam steel gets right below this because while it gets a steel typing, which is a great typing, it is also 4 times weak to fire now, which is terrible for it. Even if, again, there are worse things in general than having this typing, because as I said, it still is a potentially almost useful typing. But they're all pretty shit mons. It really doesn't matter, honestly. I could probably put Beautifly above these actually, because at least Beautifly has an almost good speed stat and it has recovery. But oh my god, these mons fucking suck. At least these two have a better typing than Parasect does though, but they all suck. Mothim. Oh my god, I hate Mothim too. Mothim again is another terrible speed bug, but at least it has a better speed stat than Beautifly by like 1 point. This has as bad coverage as Beautifly does, but one thing I will say about Beautifly at least is Beautifly, does it not get Hurricane? I thought it got Hurricane. Never mind, I take it back. They both fucking suck. Oh my god, these Pokemon are terrible. I hate bug types so much. I'm losing my sanity tearing bug types in all honesty. They're both so abysmally terrible, just one speed doesn't really matter. But for the sake of, I'll put it above Beautifly because it's 1 point faster. They're still terrible. Vespaquin. Vespaquin's kind of cool, actually. Vespaquin has a lot going for it. It's kind of bulky. Unnerve is a pretty good ability. On top of that as well, Vespaquin has stuff like Toxic Spikes, which are pretty cool for it. It's a good pivot. Well, it's a good low bug type tier pivot. It's got Cleric options. It's not horrendous for low tier bugs. It actually has some low-key good options, and Unnerve is kind of cool, but this has like no coverage to take advantage of it besides like Air Slash, I guess, and Dueling Beat because this is a mixed attacker actually. Pretty good natural bulk. Boots help this a lot actually. I'll give this F tier and I'll put it right below Ariados. I do still value this thing's priority as well as the webs that it has. But Vespaquin is a pretty cool removal option as well as a T-Spike setter. It's got some okay stuff going for it. For low tier bugs, it's one of the better. Yanmega. Yanmega is a solid bug actually. I'm gonna put this right above Heracross. Well, I know that, actually, I'm gonna put it right below Heracross. Now, while I know this is a 4 times Rock Weak Bond, this is still being able to, in theory, run boots when the metas merge. Is pretty good for it. Speed Boost and Tinted Lens are two incredible abilities. This has some good options for stabs plus Ancient Power. So you could hit at least options like fire types and fighting types pretty well. Sadly, no steel coverage, which is kind of unfortunate, but with Tinted Lens, again, it doesn't really matter. Similar to Venomoth, this can take advantage of those Pokemon pretty well. And the reason that I'm rating it above Venomoth is for a couple things. 1, 5 points faster in speed. 2, the fact that Venomoth is a lot weaker offensively. But the most important reason is the fact this is 2 really potent offensive abilities that a team can get kind of screwed by predicting wrong around. So I gotta give Yanmega a B tier. This is a solid bug type. Arceus bug, S tier, but only because it's Arceus. It's only because it's Arceus. There will be bugs, literally any other S tier bug will be higher than that. Leavanny, top of F, just because it has like chlorophyll plus also The fact that it's kind of fast for a bug type web setter and it hits opposing ground is super effective, I guess. Overcoat's also kind of a cool ability to help try and keep Sash intact a little longer, but still terrible. Whirlipede. Speed boost those dual spikes, honestly make it better than a lot of these. I'm going to rank it above Ariados. If nothing else, one thing I'll give Whirlipede is the fact that it's a kind of cool Sash and Endeavormon, but this one still fucking sucks. Scolipede, really cool bug type actually. This gets top of B. I could see merit for, I don't know. I think I could be inclined to maybe put this thing in, I could maybe be inclined to put this thing lower. I'm not actually sure where I want to put it right now, I'll be honest. Scolipede's a pretty decent bug type though. I think I am going to actually put it like below Yanmega. No, I'm going to put it above Yanmega, below Haircross. This thing does have a few things in its favor though. In Ninetales, it's a pretty okay Zmon with speed boost, which is pretty useful. It's a cool spike mon in general, since this does get spikes and toxic spikes with speed boost. Similarly to the Whirlipede, you could do like a Sash Endeavor set and it's going to be faster and guarantee get it off before you die and after popping a Sash, which is pretty cool, barring priority of course. This thing has some good coverage options. It's a cool Sword Dance mon with like a Life Orb set. And the typing, weirdly enough, kind of works offensively. As I said, the bug kills Psychics, which is pretty good for poison, and the poisons kill fairies, which is pretty good for bug. They're both going to massacre grass types. This has coverage for flying and fire types, which is pretty cool. Lots of good physical attacks. It's a decent bug. It's pretty good offensively. So we'll give it B tier. Crustle gets D tier, if nothing else, just because of the fact that it's basically doing the job of stuff like Armaldo and Shuckle, but better. Also, this is a pretty cool Shell Smash mon in all honesty, and Sturdy has pretty good ability on it. Even Weak Armor has some like niche cases where it's kind of okay, especially with the Focus Sash set. You can make this get really fucking fast. And also, this has some pretty good offensive options. Stuff like, for example, Body Press could be kind of cool, but you don't really ever pop it on this Pokemon. More importantly, though, stuff like Earthquake and Knockoff are pretty good. So I do think this is a decent bug. It also has some good hazard options with Stealth Rocks and Spikes, which with Sturdy is honestly really nice. So D tier. Escav, C tier bug. I know for a fact, I know this is a really low tier bug. Actually, I'm going to put it top of D. I know this is a low tier bug, but Escav has a really cool typing of Bug Steel, which similar to Scissor is really good. It's a steel type that can threaten poison. On fairies, it's immune to poison, which is pretty good, so it doesn't have to worry about getting toxic. It's kind of bulky, only one weakness to fire. It's a cool Sword Dance mon. It's a great Trick Room Breaker, cool bandit option, just inferior to the other steel bugs, even the ones that we haven't tiered yet. So D tier. Galvantula, this is a solid C tier actually. I'm going to put Galvantula right above Scyther, below Venomoth. Galvantula is a pretty cool webs option. I just think it's gotten caught up in power creep sadly. It's not fast enough to be a fast Pokemon because now fast as far as Ninetales goes is 110. It's fast for Galar, I guess, but Galar also is a insanely boots inflated metagame. So is Nat to be fair, but still. This mon sadly is not that hard offensively speaking unless you're running like Specs Thunder, which then you're locking into moves that are immune by other Pokemon, which is kind of bad. It's just not a great Pokemon, and I think that the other Bug Electric is just better than it. But Galvantula is still not terrible. It still has some good utility options, stuff like Disable, for example. Thunder Wave is kind of cool, but ultimately not a great bug. It's just better than a lot of the other ones, sadly. It's just not a great Pokemon, though. Shelmet, if nothing else, actually, I'm going to tier really high in the F tier. For the sole reason this little fucker comes up every single time of Uber fighting type is allowed in OU. When Marshadow was allowed in Gen 7, this was the check to it. This was objectively speaking the check to it, and it was really fucking funny to watch. In Gen 8, this came back because it's immune to critical, and it was a switch into Urshifu because again, it's resistant to fighting, and it's not going to get crit by Urshifu. A Violet makes it pretty bulky, it's got recovery, it's got spikes, which is pretty cool. This actually does have some cool stuff in its arsenal, and I think Shelmet, as far as a low tier bug goes, is one of the better ones. Shelmet's actually a crazy good Pokemon. It's stuff like Encore is really good utility. In metas they'll have Baton Pass. Really, I know that it's not being used in doubles, it's not going to be used in AG, but one place that it does, and I know this isn't a draft tier list, but I do have to give credit to my roots here, of course, as a Shelmet user in draft. Baton Pass was incredible in this Pokemon as far as a low tier spiker that could get you into other Pokemon, but even still, again, this is mostly just used in singles when an Uber fighting type is allowed in OU, even though the mon should have never been allowed. But it's still a cool bug. It's definitely F tier for sure, but it's good enough to be mentioned, and it's better than almost every F tier bug. The only reason these two are higher is because this is it's one of the better, faster, low tier Sash Seaweb moms, and Butterfree has some like okay usage in certain very, very early VGC metas as a Tailwind mon. Like I know this was kind of used in VGC in like the series 1, 2, 3s, so I'll give it that. A Slugor, solid C tier bug, definitely better than Galvantula and Scyther in my opinion. Great spiker, good pivot, great utility with stuff like Disable and Encore. Oh, I don't think it gets Disable, but it definitely gets Encore at the very least. Regardless, really cool bug type, offensively speaking. So solid C tiering. So next up, we have Durant. Now, Durant is a pretty potent bug type. I'm gonna give this the B tier. I'll be honest, I forget where I put it in the Fortress comparison, but I know I did compare it to Fortress's ranking just for different reasons, of course, since these are very different Pokemon. They're literally night and day. I do think of Fortress that Durant is still a pretty good Pokemon. It had a couple very dominant VGC meta games, and it's still a pretty cool mon as far as singles goes, with stuff like Hustle, for example, being great. It's really good abuser Dynamax with, again, like Hustle and not worrying about missing moves because they're all guaranteed to hit. So I do think that Durant is a pretty good Pokemon, albeit it's definitely got some issues compared to other top tier bugs, and it's weak compared to those as far as a just general meta presence, not necessarily in strength because again it hits like a truck, but it's still a pretty terrifying bug to face. This is something that in general is pretty hard to switch in around, so I'm gonna give it a B tier. Volcarona, solid A tier bug. This is incredible as far as an offensive mon goes. It's great at Quiver Dance, snowballing a lot of teams. This is really a bulky Pokemon in general, which I know a lot of people don't think of Volcarona as bulky, but oh my god, this thing can take special hits really well, especially in VGC where you could run a Seed with this and Rage Powder. This is absolute shenaniganry. Incredible bug type, really potent offensively and defensively speaking in my opinion. It's got some cool pivot options if you're not going to run a setup set. Flame Body is great to help this thing set up easier as well, especially as a great fighting type switch in. So easily a solid A tier mon in my opinion. Genesect, solid S tier, better than Arceus bug. Genesect in general is a great pivot. It's a good mix option, incredible Scarfer, cool shift gear mon too actually. This thing gets some insane coverage going for it. So I gotta give it S tier, especially with the priority options as well. If you're gonna run a Life Orb or Band set with just 4 attacks, drives are great for handling stuff like Keytrend that would be typical checks if this was allowed in OU, or maybe just in general coverage for stuff like Ferrothorn with stuff like Flamethrower. So yeah, this thing's a monster, easy S tier. Vivian, as far as the quiver bugs go, this is honestly a pretty decent one. I'm gonna give this thing a solid D tier. There are a couple of reasons for this one actually. One is personal bias. I fucking love this one. But outside of personal bias, this thing has a lot going for it. Compound Eyes for one, as we mentioned with Butterfree, is pretty good, but this is just better Butterfree. It's faster. It's about as good offensively speaking, to be fair. They're literally both the same, but this has a lot more speed on Butterfree, which is important actually for trying to outpace Scarfers, a general fast Pokemon. It takes those Quiver Dances to do so. Not only this, but between the fact this gets Sleep Powder, which again, Butterfree also gets, but more importantly, the fact that this also is just in general able to take advantage of a lot of different fast box arts really easily, and anything goes. Because again, it's just the better version of Butterfree. Better speed, better, I think it's actually a little worse bulk, but it's okay because once you get enough Quiver Dances up with a Bright Powder, you're able to dodge anything. This literally though just does what Butterfree could do in Anything Goes, but it does it better because it just has better stats tailored to just set up and outpace more Pokemon. I think that, to be fair, Vivian, even still as far as a low tier setting goes, could take advantage of Hurricane Compound Eyes and just snowball teams more easily because it would outpace a lot of common Scarfers. This still has a lot of the same coverage that Butterfree has, stuff like Energy Ball and Giga Drain, for example. Still has stuff like Bug Buzz for a nice stab option, good Psychic. So it's basically just Butterfree but faster. And not only that, but it still gets a lot of the good utility that Butterfree gets, stuff like Sun Spore, Sleep Powder, Tailwind. So I gotta give it a solid D tier. Really good Quiver Dance mon in my personal opinion. Next up though, we have Charjabug. Charjabug gets bottom of D, and this is purely not because I think Charjabug is an amazing Pokemon. I do, again, Charjabug bias. But Battery is a pretty cool ability as far as VGC goes, and this at least has the potential, and it's very, 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 very niche, and occasionally it will be a kind of useful Pokemon, boosting special attack. Similar reason for why I put Cherrim not in F tier, because while it is an incredibly niche Pokemon, it has its time. Boosts special attack by 1.3, which is pretty cool, similar to Stonjourner boosting the physical attack, but the difference being this is a kind of bulky and obnoxious Pokemon to kill. Charjabug also being a good low tier web setter, albeit again, there are better ones, but it's kind of there. Actually, I'm gonna give Charjabug F, because if nothing else, I think the difference being is that this only boosts 1 stat, Chair boosts 2, so it is a little different logic. I will put it right below Shelmet though. Charge Bug, still cool web setter, still kind of bulky, typing's pretty cool. It's one of the better F tier bugs. A Vikavolt though, easy top of C. I'll put it right below Shedinja actually, because as I said, I do think this is like the best C tier gets. But Vikavolt is pretty cool. It's a great breaker. It's a really cool defensive bug too, actually, which a lot of people don't think of it as one. But Shedinja, I know, Vikavolt has some really good typings in general. Bug Electric does give some really few resists, especially with Levitate, making its neutrality to ground now just a complete resistance on a complete immunity. It's only really weak to like fire, rock, and it's not weak to flying because it's neutral. Actually, I don't think that ground was a neutral hit, but it's immune regardless because of Levitate. But it's neutral and it's resistant to, well, no, it's only weak to fire, and it's literally just fire and rock, I think. I do need to double check that. I'm really bad with my type chart, guys. I'm so sorry. Vikavolt. As far as weakness, Vikavolt, I'm literally pulling up right now. Yeah, just fire and rock. Okay, so I wasn't off. As I said, just had to double check. But in general though, Vikavolt's a cool pivot. It's a good bulky mon. This is a great fighting check as far as low tiers go. It's a good web setter, easy C tier. I think it's just the better version of Galliantula. Rabombi. Rabombi is also going to get C tier. I know this is literally a PU mon, but this does have some cool things going for it. For one, it's one of those pretty decent mons like Pheromosa that can definitely run like a skill swap set pretty well. And it's a fast stun spore mon. It's pretty viable in OU as far as that setting goes. It is definitely a PU bug type for sure, and I'll acknowledge that. But it's a PU bug type similar to Quagsire and stuff like that that has a lot of high tier viability. And especially on offensive builds, this is a really good one. It's a great pivot. It's a cool specs mon as far as low tiers go. I think it's a decent one. I'm actually gonna put it in D tier. I'll put it in like right below, right above Escavs, just top of D. I think this is the epitome of D tier Pokemon. Raquanid, solid C tier Pokemon. This will be the one actually I do put above Shedinja. Oh no, I'm gonna put it below Shedinja still. Just better version of Vikavolt in my opinion, and it's purely just because of the fact that I think that the water bug typing is even better, and this is a physical mon as well that cannot get burned. That's a pretty big deal in my personal opinion with Water Bubble, considering the fact it can just spam like banded liquidations or just again not worry about burn. It's now resisting fire because of Water Bubble, because it's basically the thick fat effect of Mega Venusaur, where it's already a neutral hit and then it's going to be Mega Venusaur didn't really resist before, but the point being, it's like a thick fat effect where it adds on a fire resistance to a Pokemon that's already neutral to fire, so it's now resisting like a normal water type should. So I do think that benefits Araquanid a lot, so I'm gonna give this a solid C tier. Glisapod, this is the one that rose up for me a lot, I'll be honest. Golisopod does have a few things going for it with stuff like heavy duty boots, and honestly, I think a lot of people have realized that the ability Emergency Exit isn't actually bad on this Pokemon. It's great for allowing teams to pivot and get spikes up or get up a really strong hit and then switch it out. I'm gonna give this a solid C tier. I think Glisapod has benefited a ton from this generation from not being hazard weak and being chipped into Emergency Exit before it can get an attack off or before it can get spikes up. So I gotta give it to it. The fucking Glisapod, really good generation for it, personally. Also, stuff like Close Combat and Drill Run are great for typical bug checks. Stuff like Knockoff is just a great move in general. Good priority in Aqua Jet. Really good Pokemon. Savali bug, terrible mon, but at least it's a Savali and it's somehow better than a lot of these low tier bugs because they all just fucking suck. F tier, good type, good coverage, terrible mon. Buzzwole, easy A tier in my opinion. This is a really good mon in general as far as OU goes. Great check to stuff like Weavile, which is a menace in OU right now. Good offensively speaking for a lot of different Pokemon. If you need a Landorus switch in to a non-fly Landorus or not toxic Landorus, or I guess, yeah, you wouldn't even mind toxic too much. No, it's definitely not great. But if you need to switch into non-fly Landorus, this gets Ice Punch and it's a great physical wall. You need to switch into non-airless Weavile, which even still this can take a hit from. Buzzwole with Drain Punch. You need a Pokemon that can handle Psychics, Leech Life Buzzwole. This can do a lot of stuff in the OU tier, and it's an incredible Pokemon. It's also one of those few Pokemon that can actually like be tailored to handle stuff like Arctozolt, at least pure physical Arctozolt, I should say, because Special will still do a good chunk to it, but it's a solid A tier. Pheromosa, it's just Genesect, but better in my personal opinion. While Genesect starts off more potent, I think Pheromosa is one of those mons that can be insanely deadly if you give it a turn, because Beast Boost is an incredible ability. This is a really terrifying Scarfer because of how fast it is, and it outpaces like any other viable Scarfer. It's a cool Quivermon even, which can lure a lot of teams because most teams assume it's going to be physical with like just 4 attacks. It's cool with Life Orb, Banded, Mixed, really whatever. It's even cool in VGC with stuff like Skill Swap, which is something that Genesect doesn't really have a good VGC presence. It's not terrible, but it's outclassed by a lot of things. Pheromosa, though, is a pretty cool speed swap mon because it can make some slow Pokemon astronomically fast. I know there was a point in the metagame where stuff like Snorlax was being ran with this, and you were going for like a Drum Snorlax plus a skill swap with Pheromosa and making Snorlax snowball teams with Gmax. So this does have an actual presence as far as double goes, and I think that's the reason I'm going to give it top of S. Spoilers, we will not have an S plus tier bug. I put the tiering in here just to preface that it's here, but there's no S plus bug. They all suck. Dottler, this one's the actual D tier web setter bug. This has some good options going for it, like a Iron Defense Body Press with the Violate. This is actually a kind of bulky Pokemon, and Dottler also does get like flat out recover, which is pretty cool. So I gotta give it that, albeit I do understand that I did say that like the non-tiereds were here, but this is still better than a lot of those, so F tier. Orbeetle literally just right above it, and I think the reason being is this can actually run boots. Dottler can't, so it's still rock weak. Orbeetle's also probably a better baton pass target if we're going to be completely honest, but again, they both kind of suck, both F tier. Orbeetle Gmax, this one's terrible, but I will say I'm going to put this at at least right above Orbeetle, because if nothing else, while this isn't set to rain, Gravitas is a pretty cool option to try and make stuff like Rock Slide more accurate, and also to ground opposing Pokemon, because this move is basically just gravity with damage, which is really cool actually. It misses out in terrain, but Orbeetle isn't really a breaker, it doesn't matter about that. The support is kind of cool on it. And also, as far as a pre option goes, it still gets Ally Switch, which is pretty useful. So if you're going to go for pre-Gmax Ally Switch, or then just go for a Max Gravitas, this has a fun Max Guard built into it as well because of the Ally Switch being on the moveset. It's not great, but it's not terrible. Definitely D tier. Centiskorch, pretty cool typing actually, especially with boots. Flame Body's great on it. I gotta say, especially a bug type that can handle opposing steals really effortlessly, this is pretty cool, albeit I do think it's just better than Pincer, worse than Ninjask personally. Centiskorch definitely does have, sadly, a little bit too low of a speed tier to really take advantage of its not terrible bulk. But Flame Body plus Flash Fire, on top of also the fact this does have stuff like Coil, and also, I know this got some sort of status, but I'm forgetting. Maybe I was just thinking, I guess Will-O-Wisp, but even still, it has some cool options, stuff like Knock Off for utility, stuff like Power Whip for opposing rock types, and also just opposing grounds that this Pokemon is neutral to because it's a fire type. Solid D tier. Gmax Centiskorch literally just gets right above it. Similar reasons to Orbeetle. This one doesn't really mind the fact that its max move doesn't give the boosted damage option with the sun in this case, because the trapping is honestly kind of cool on this. You could trap in Pokemon just because it's literally Fire Spin, which is really useful, albeit it's not a great max spawn in general, but that's more so because of Centiskorch, less so because of the max spawn. Doesn't really care that its move does or doesn't boost the sun though. It's too slow to really mind that. If this had like base 90 speed or like a better ability, like something like I know Radical Red gives this thing like Mountaineer, which if it had like the hazard immunity in its ability would be amazing with like a Magic Guard or some shit. Then this Pokemon could be in the conversation for minding that it does or doesn't have max flare. But regardless though, cool option, D tier. Frostmoth, this gets D tier, not because it's great, albeit this is definitely at least better than Pincer. Actually, I'll give this above Ninjask. This is a really cool Quiver Dance option as far as PU goes. You could pair this with something like any sort of Steel Killer or like any sort of Rock Killer. Really just Steel, actually, it's the one you mind too much. And then with Ice Scales, you could set up on a lot of special Pokemon, incredible boots Pokemon. The typing is okay. I will say though that Ice is incredible offensive typing, so if you get the +1 speed off, this is a menace. Easy D tier. Finally though, we have Kleavor. Now Kleavor is an interesting one. I think on paper, this could definitely be a solid A tier Pokemon. I'm a little unsure where I'm actually going to feel on Kleavor, I'll be honest. As far as what Kleavor does get though, we do have a few things in its favor. For one, if we look at what Kleavor already is confirmed to have, this does get options like Roost, for example, because of Scyther, which is honestly, again, really useful. This also gets stuff like Close Combat in its arsenal, which is great for handling steel types as far as coverage goes. You get stuff like Knock Off because of Scyther, which is great. You get U-Turn, which is amazing. Rock Slide, which is Sheer Force boosted because this Pokemon does have Sheer Force, which is incredible. It has the Nidoking stat line of base 85 speed, which is great. 135 attack is far more deadly though than Nidoking's 102 attack. And also the fact that Nidoking mostly relies on special Sheer Force moves, this doesn't have to. Rock Slide's great. So I think this could honestly be a solid A tier Pokemon. We've even seen Nidoking be a fairly viable mon in OU, both your BDSP and Sword and Shield, depending on the meta. And it's still a solid UU mon nonetheless. So I think this just could be a really deadly webs breaker is what will most likely be the case. Though it could be a cool Scarf Sheer Force Rock Slide mon. I think this will be like bottom of A tier personally. I wouldn't be shocked though if this fell to like below Heracross Scolipede viability, but I think it at least has the potential to be a solid A tier mon. I'm really indifferent on Cleavor in all honesty, but it's going to be something we'll kind of have to wait and see. That was our bug type tier list though today. If you enjoyed the video and you want to see more content like this, leave a like and subscribe for more. On Friday's video, we're going to be doing Fairy, which will be our next tier list. However, if you come back tomorrow, we do have a solid Wi-Fi battle in some Spikemuth Cup games, so I'd love to see you guys there. Shout out to our channel members being Zeke0, Josh aka Ultra Player, and Mia. Thank you guys so much for going the extra mile in the support of the channel. I appreciate it. And with that said, I will see you guys in tomorrow's video. Until then, peace out guys.